You're watching Study with Sudhir. My name is Sudhir and this is your digital classroom. Time to discuss the answer key to the English literature paper for ICSE class 10 which took place today, the 30th of November. But before I get into English 2, a few points about English 1 whose answer key had put out earlier in the day. Now, I've opened several windows, so just bear with me while I go. In the comprehension passage, right, from Satyajit Ray's Bonka Babu, a point that has been raised by a few students, and I agree with the broad tenor of it, which talks about the second question, which tradition was continued by the school? And the options were the tradition of drawing on the blackboard, no. The tradition of teasing Bonka Babu, which I said would be the right answer, the tradition of lighting crackers, or the tradition of new students replacing old ones. Now, if you look at the passage, what does it say? Every year, a new batch of students replaced the old one, but old or new, the tradition of teasing poor Bonka Babu continued among all the students. So the word tradition has been associated with Bonka Babu being teased by all the students, the new students every year. The new batch of students replacing the old ones is not a tradition. It cannot be called a tradition. It is part of the system of the school. Isn't that right? So it cannot technically be called tradition. Now, where the council has made a mistake is to use the word by the school. Because if it was of one batch of students replacing the earlier batch, it should have been the tradition was continued by the school. But here the students are teasing Bonka Babu, it should ideally have been at the school. So technically, if you ask me my opinion, students who have marked B and D, both of them should be given the concession and should be given the marks, is my personal opinion as far as this particular question is concerned. There was another one. Just let me just go through this. Yeah. What impression do you have of Bonka Babu's character? Afraid of his students, a good geography teacher, patient and kindly, light gatherings. Now, kindly is an adverb, right? Now, it says basically about how, 1 minute, where did it disappear? Yeah. It talks about his character. Some students have said, why can't a good geography teacher be the right answer? We are talking about his character. So, therefore, patient and kindly fits the bill more. Okay. There was one more. I just need to find it. थोड़ा रुक जाओ. He was never cross. Students are getting the meaning of the word cross at a lot of times. Yeah, the meaning of the word endurance. Now, if you look at the dictionary meaning, both tolerance and bearing are mentioned as synonyms of endurance. I completely agree. Though in the way the sentence is structured, I do believe that tolerance fits in better than bearing, right? It's entirely the ICSE call because the dictionary mentions both as synonyms for endurance, whether they will give marks to students who have written both meanings. Okay, so that was as far as the comprehension passage. Most of the doubts pertain to the comprehension passage. Okay, I think we are done as far as the language clarifications are concerned. Now let's come to literature. In the morning, I was telling my students on the app that expect at least half a dozen questions which will be a little tricky, and I had advised them to read those questions very carefully. There would be this 6 odd questions which could actually be very, very close to each other, and that's precisely what has happened. Exactly 6 questions where the options are very close. So we will discuss that. Let's go through it one by one. When is Hans Christian Andersen's story, The Little Match Girl, set? Easy. Option number C, on a cold, dark New Year's Eve. Okay. We discussed this a lot of times because the author's note mentions Christmas, and I was telling them that's written by the publisher, not by Andersen. Which of the following does not appear in the visions that the little match girl sees? Option D, colorful fireworks display. When Shylock speaks of Jessica's elopement, he exclaims, now the correct answer for this is betrayal. Okay. Let's now come to the fourth question. Which important character trait of Bassanio helps him choose the right casket? Now here again students are having a few doubts. This is the first of the tricky questions. I believe that the key word is right casket, the lead casket, right? Now, how did he choose the lead casket? Because of his ability to look beyond outward appearances, which is why I believe option number B, the ability to look beyond outward appearances, should be the correct answer. However, a couple of students have sent me from their workbook. I don't know which particular book is this. And this is what it says, and many ICSE students do follow this workbook. The lottery of the caskets is a test of character, and his choice of the right casket is a result of his inborn nobility and profound love for Portia. It is love which makes him give and hazard all for her sake. This is part of what the casket says. So, profound love for Portia, which is precisely what is mentioned as an option here. So, what would the council do? I don't know. If it was about the specific to the lead casket, outward appearance is what makes Bassanio choose it. But if you are looking at it in a very generic sense, option C also falls. So this is a 50-50 crackjack kind of a chakkar. Okay. What is the central theme of Maya Angelou's poem? This of course is easy: freedom and oppression. Okay. How does Portia plan to rescue her husband Antonio from Shylock's clutches? B. Appear in court disguised as a lawyer and fight the case for Antonio, which happens in the trial scene. Question number 7. B. Comic relief. The conversation between Lancelot, Jessica and Lorenzo, Act 3, Scene 5. 8th question. The second of the tricky questions. What is patriot in Browning's poem referring to when he says, "Thus I entered and thus I go"? In the context of the poem, in the limited context of the poem, it is obviously his short-lived dramatic rise and fall in popularity, right? And death is specifically mentioned because he is going to meet God and he is going to be hanged, right? So, but whether birth is there, it is more at a very profound and philosophical level that option A could come into the picture. But otherwise, in the pure context of what is happening within the poem, starting from the first stanza, the celebration, the flags and the church spires, everything, to what happens now when he's stoning and he's being tied with the rope and the rain and he's going to Shambles Gate. Now it is his dramatic rise and fall in property. So thus I entered and thus I go. Okay, so this has happened within a span of 1 year. So C, to my mind, would be the appropriate option. But again, his birth and death comes very close. Okay, number 9, option number D, finding the blue bead for her necklace, the highlight of Sibia's stay. The author says twice the length of a man. So this is pretty simple, 6 feet, 12 feet long approximately. Now let's come to MOV, section B, question number 11. Who is Tubal? Shylock's friend. What news of Jessica does Tubal bring to Shylock? She was spending Shylock's money extravagantly. Here, you know what they have done? Monkey has been made donkey. Frankfurt spelling is wrong, which is why I think that's some kind of a hint that option A would be the right one. Question number 3. C. Antonio's merchant ship had been wrecked on the way from Tripolis. Question number 4. B option, hire an officer of the law. We had discussed this in the morning also. Which of the words spoken by Shylock reflect his vengeful nature? D option, I will have the heart of him if he forfeits. Okay, now let's go to the second extract. Question number 1, A, tense and anxious. Question number 2, why does Portia want to detain Bassanio for a month or two? This is, she's afraid he might choose the wrong casket and she would never get to see him again. Question number 3, why does Portia say she cannot help Bassanio choose the right casket? Option number B, she would be breaking her promise to her father if she did. Question number 4, the meaning of the word rack in this context. Now, Bassanio uses it in a metaphorical context in which he's talking about the torture and the torment. You know, that he's feeling tormented. So he wants to go ahead and take part in the election of the caskets, right? It is Portia who interprets it literally and tries to tease him in the beginning part of Act 3, Scene 2. Here they have asked, give the meaning of the word rack. Okay. And that therefore option C, a bed like open frame used as a torture device, would be the right option. But if you are to take in the way Bassanio said, this is the next one of the tricky questions. Option D would also come into picture, to cause extreme pain and distress, because he wants to kind of get over with it. But I think C would generally be okay, as because they are asking, saying, give the meaning of the word rack, okay, in this particular context. Fifth one, ring. 13th question, which is from the little match girl. What do the words she could not think of anything else say? She was desperately hungry. Question number 2. Option number C, struck a match to warm her frozen fingers. That what, when she could no longer bear the cold. When does the little girl's grandmother appear before her? When she struck the 4th matchstick. Read the following, which is not true, right? And the option is she's about 17 years old. That detail is not given in the story at all. What happened to the little girl at the end of the story? She's froze to death. Okay, simple. Let's come to blue bead question. What was Sibia doing when the Gujar woman? She was resting on a boulder in the middle of the river. Why did the Gujar woman not notice the crocodile until it's too late? Because it was well hidden by the drifting logs of timber, because the logs of timber are mentioned in the story, in that part of the story. Listed below are some details about crocodiles. Pretty easy. Crocodiles are herbivores, right? How did the Gujar woman try to save herself? Now, some students have written about uttering a shrill, piercing scream, but in the text, by clinging desperately to a floating log of wood is where the word save has been used. I will read out from the text. It says, as she slipped and fell onto the bone-breaking stone and clutched one of the timber logs to save herself. So, the word save has been used in that context. What does Sibia delight in finding the blue bead tell us about her nature? That she's innocent and childlike. Okay, question number 15 from the caged bird. The word stalks in the above extract can be best replaced by B, paces to and fro. Not the most ideal kind of replacement. Stalk does not necessarily mean pace to and fro. It means staring, it means chasing someone, following someone. But as I always say, you have to choose the most appropriate of the 4 options, right? Not the most correct option, but the most appropriate one. And here of the 4, this one is the most appropriate one. What is the caged bird blinded by? It's bars of rage. Rage means anger. So, his anger. Why have the bird's wings been clipped and his feet tied? To control him, right? To keep him under control, right? Which of the following actions is associated with the caged bird? With the caged bird pouring his heart out in song. What is the mood conveyed in the above extract? The one which has been given out here, frustration, right? Last one from the Patriot. What do the words leaped at the sun convey? Attempted the impossible. The statements, which of the statements does not describe the present condition of the speaker, greeted and cheered by loyal crowds, that happened earlier in the poem, the first stanza, first and second stanza. Not man could do, have I left undone in the above extract means that I have done everything that was humanly possible. Option B. Why had the people gathered in large numbers exactly a year ago? In order to greet and welcome the Patriot in the first and second stanza. And the last one, the tone of the speaker in the above lines. A lot of people have this doubt. Sarcastic, bitter, joyous and hopeful. Now, here you need to understand something. That bitterness and anger are a higher form of emotion than sarcasm. When you are angry, when you are bitter, you resort to sarcasm, right? That's one of the manifestations in which you speak. So when you are bitter and frustrated, you end up being angry or making sarcastic kind of comments. So if of the 4 options, bitter was not there, then sarcasm would have been the most appropriate option, because the word harvest that he uses is used in a sarcastic tone by the Patriot, right? By the Patriot. He has used it in a sarcastic tone. But since there is a sense of bitterness in this whole thing, that, I did so much for these people, I did so much for these people, but these people, this is what I get at the end of doing so much over the last 1 year for these people. I leaped at the sun, I did the impossible, but I have nothing I have left undone. But you see, this is my harvest, right? So that is, in a sense of, harvest has been used in a sense of sarcasm. But the larger mood of these lines and a stronger emotion is that of bitterness. You know, I did so much, maine itna kuch kiya, lekin this is what I get. So of these four options, the most appropriate one this time would be bitter and not sarcastic. As I said, if there was no bitter, then sarcastic would have been the better, most appropriate option. So with that, we come to the end of the English literature paper. Let's now start preparing for the history and civics paper. It's an easy paper, but barring these 5-6 ones which are a little tricky, where you would have had to struggle a bit, but otherwise not a very difficult paper. Many of the questions, at least 34-35 of the questions, are pretty much straightforward. Thank you very much for watching.